Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. What a great show today. You know, we always talk about money on the show, whether it's startup money or founders or successful entrepreneurs, the way they're building their business, the way they run their business. And one thing that comes into play quite often are pension plans. We talk about it all the time when we think about pension plans, how important they are and what they're all about. So, you know, we were sitting around the office, we were talking about pension plans, and we decided to bring in a real leading expert in pension plans. I mean, he has an incredible background and incredible experience. He's built a new company now with some great talent. I mean, when you look at the team he's built, I mean, it looks like a who's who of who knows about pension plans. But we have so many questions for Gene Kalwarski. I mean, he is the CEO and principal at Cheiron, and they do such a great job. His ability and his team's ability sort of to take a look at their pension plan and make sure it's being done right. So, Gene, welcome to the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I mean, you're one of the leaders. You've put together this great team of experts, and you're doing a lot of stress testing and things like that in pension plans. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about what Cheiron does. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet. Tell us about Cheiron, and then we'll get started.
We have hundreds of clients that are either pension plans or medical plans. And they're typically in the public sector or what's called the multi-employer Taft-Hartley sector. And most of our plans or clients are multi-billion-dollar funds. And we try to keep those funds solvent so that they can pay their pensions or their health insurance benefits without fail.
Yeah, it's so great what you do. You have such great clients. I mean, who's who of the client list is remarkable. You have a great story about how you came up with the name Cheiron. I mean, I didn't even know about it before you told me about it. Tell us about the name a little bit, and then we're going to get into it.
Well, we were formerly with another firm that attempted to impose liability limits, which means that if you make a mistake, you can't sue us for more than our fees. We decided to break away from that pack and became advisor to our pension funds and health funds. And we learned that Cheiron was a centaur that wasn't despicable. And he broke away from the pack, was an advisor to the gods. And he was immortalized after death with his constellation Sagittarius, and 6 of the 8 founders are Sagittarians.
Wow. I mean, it's great. Now let's talk about it. Let's talk about managing uncertainty, because when we think about the plans, I mean, you're a worldwide leading expert in something called stress testing. And for those people that don't know what that is, let's share what that is and how Cheiron can help.
All right, let me first start by saying what it isn't, because that'll help you understand what it is. What many actuaries do is simply produce a set of numbers comparing this year to last year and make hundreds of assumptions about that. What we do with stress testing is say, well, we're not sure if these assumptions will pan out. So we'll create a live model that you could play with yourself, and you could put in your own returns or your own assumptions, and you can do all the kind of what ifs you want. And that's stress testing the projected finances of a pension fund, as opposed to an actuary saying, here's the number, believe me, I'm right.
Yeah, I love it. And of course, you have an in-house software that really enables you to create customized tools, really to meet, you know, the unique clients' needs and challenges. Let's talk about that software solution, Gene. That's very interesting.
That's a P scan for the pension part and H scan for health. And it is a projection tool that we let our clients have online. And one of the best success stories I have is City of Detroit, which went through a bankruptcy. And they had 6 years or 8 years, I think, to plan for coming out of bankruptcy and having to pay for their pension. And we built a very powerful stress testing model, put it online. And what the city did is they went ahead and hired a whiz kid to learn how to use the model. And they know how to use the model. They rarely use this anymore. So from a financial point of view, it wasn't a success, but from an empowerment point of view, it was one of our best success stories. And now the city's able to do a lot of bankruptcy.
Yeah, it's a great success story. And that was a great story with the city of Detroit. And of course, when we think about stress testing pensions and health and welfare plans for risk, let's talk about it. Let's share with the audience what some of the biggest risks are to their plans?
There's a couple. One, the primary one is investment risk. And what people fail to remember is that if you had $1 and you lost 50%, you're down to 50 cents. But if you gained 50% the next year, you're only up to 75. And that's risk. You can't say I can earn 50% this year and lose 50% the next year. The second type of risk are people, more and more people are making it to their 80s and 90s. So the payment period is increasing for these pension funds. And that also is something that can be stress tested. Yeah,
very interesting. Let's talk about that, Gene, because we're getting older. I mean, I'm an old guy already. I'm older than paint drying, for many, many years, and the population is aging, and C-level executives are also aging. Where does all of this go into the future as this population begins to get into their 70s, 80s, and 90s? All those baby boomers, like me, that are now getting a little bit older. Where does all of this sort of shake out?
Well, first, what's important to note is life is not extending at the far end ages, around 100, 110. Everybody's just piling up towards those ages. And when you start having more and more people alive, have you ever heard of the movie Soylent Green?
Of course.
Well, you know how that goes.
It's you. I think the famous line at the end with Charlton Heston is he says, "It's humans," right?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So you have so many more people into retirement. The worry is if there's not enough money there to pay for their pensions or health insurance, how will the younger generations want to support them? And if you don't support them, that's where you get Soylent Green. But our job is to make sure that enough money is there to take care of these people.
Wow, very interesting. Let's talk about something that probably people are thinking about now that we're talking about what you do for the private pension plans. Just let's briefly talk about Social Security. Where do you see it going? Where do you see it in the next 20 years? How does that sort of incorporate into what some companies are doing with their pension plans?
Well, first, people have been claiming that Social Security was going to run out money since I first got my first job. And I thought I would never see it. Now I'm about to be of the age of collecting it. But I think it's, many employers are saying, well, the combination of Social Security with, let's say, a 401k should be enough, and I don't need to offer a pension plan. So that's not necessarily good because 401ks are just savings accounts. And if people live longer, they can run up, their savings account could dry out sooner. So what we try to do is design programs that are called defined benefit pension plans. So that it is a fixed benefit for life, as opposed to a savings account that you hope will be enough for life.
Yeah, and that's very important. How important are pension plans for the bigger companies? We have some younger entrepreneurs watching the show. Maybe they're not familiar. How important is a good pension plan for the larger companies to attract and keep their team?
Well, unfortunately, it's the larger companies that have stopped providing these defined benefit pension plans. They are almost all providing these 401k savings accounts. And some of the smaller entrepreneurial companies are offering the defined benefit plans because they can attract the employees that larger companies can't anymore. This is particularly true in this with teachers and with public safety personnel who typically stay in the same career their entire lifetime.
Yeah, so interesting, Gene. Let's talk about it a little bit, because if I have a pension plan, one thing that I might be interested is, what are my plan's current and projected costs? And I think that's something that's very interesting. Talk about how your system, your platform, the people that are on your team sort of help solve that question for your clients.
Well, that's exactly what the stress testing models do. We collect the census data on all the participants. We know what the plan provisions are. We get the financial data, and then we project out over time when people are going to leave employment, die, or how long they'll live, what their salaries will be. And that's all in the modeling. And then based on the current level of assets and what we expect the contributions to be, we can show the projected funded status of the plan over 30, 40 years. And then you can start playing, well, what if the returns are different? What if the assumptions are different? So you're hitting the centerpiece of our work there.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I'm glad I've been able to hit the centerpiece of it. One thing I'm thinking about, a plan, Gene, needs to stay what I'm going to call financially sound. So let's talk about how your test sort of helps in that arena and make sure that that actually happens.
Well, that's funny. I'm about to be giving a presentation on that very topic in 2 weeks in UCLA. But what we've done, and I could probably give you an example. We have one client that was a client of mine since 1985. And at that time, they had less than 20 cents on the dollar to cover their liabilities. And they were assuming they were going to earn 10% each and every year. Today, nearly just under 40 years later, that plan's over 90% funded, and we're only assuming 6.5% earnings. So we rolled this plan for the entire almost 40-year period. And what we did is every time there was strong performance in the plan, we told the state or the board of this pension plan, it's a public plan, to not lower contributions and maybe strengthen their assumptions. And over time, that was able to fully fund the plan. What other plans were doing is when times were great and you were earning more than was expected, they'd let the contributions lower. And then when times turned around, it was difficult to put the money back in.
Yeah, that's a great example of great advice. And I would imagine when we think about it, we need to talk about the government and accounting filings, because I would imagine there are filings that need to take place to keep these plans operating at the highest optimal way, in the highest optimal way. So does your system also help, with the required government filings and the accounting filings as well?
We do that for our clients, but you just hit on why so many plans are in trouble, because they spend all their time worrying about filings as opposed to really seeing the plan. And the rules that the accountants or the government officials give you for these filings sometimes are nonsensical, and everybody pays attention to those because they have to get it done. And then they lose track of the more important issue is where's your projected status.
Yeah,
so I'm not a believer in those filings helping a plan.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Gene. Of course, you have some tremendous case studies on your website. I mean, anybody can go to the website and read them. But one that caught our attention was this Boston Local 26. I mean, that's a case study that you share on the website. Maybe you can share some of what you did for the Boston Local 26.
Okay. So I spent some time earlier talking about defined benefit plans, and then I also talked about savings or 401k plans. We were once approached by an official representative of a pension fund said, why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't we come up with something in between? And so we came up with something called the variable or VDB, variable defined benefit. And in that plan, participants' benefit can go up or down, but based on investment earnings. So they take some of the risk, but the employer agrees that no matter how long the person lives, they'll pay the pension. And so it's a mix between the two plans. And that Boston Hotel Fund was the first that started this concept. And that's, I think, about 10 years ago. And now these types of plans are growing exponentially. Yeah,
it's very interesting. Now, let's talk to the younger entrepreneurs, because, maybe they're in startup mode. Maybe they're raising some money. Maybe they're, bootstrap. Maybe they have some angel money. Maybe they're, Series A round. When's the best time, Gene, to start thinking about the pension plan for your company and starting to sort of consolidate your ideas into an actual pension plan? How far along in a company's, advancement should one start thinking about a pension plan?
Well, if you've been operating and your company actually has been successful, say for just a few years, and you don't start thinking about that, you eventually may lose your employees, because they'll have so many other choices to go to plans that offer such benefits. And it's not just pension, it's your health benefits as well as your pension benefits.
Interesting. And of course, it seems, from what we've read, getting ready for the interview, Gene, is that there are some states that actually have begun requiring stress testing on public pension plans. Is that now nationwide, or is it certain states for that?
It's certain states, and it's the Pew Institute is an organization that's promoting that heavily. And yes, it is, we actually been doing stress testing, or I have personally been doing it since the 1980s, but they've only come into national prominence in the last 5 years, let's say.
Yeah, and of course, your company and the people at your company, you really have led the call for what I'm going to call mandatory stress testing, of defined benefit plans. Why is that such an important thing, the mandatory stress testing? Who does that benefit?
It benefits the decision makers for the plan who make changes to the plan. And if they simply take the old, well, think of it this way. Think of the entertainment industry, think of the medical profession, what it looked like 50 years ago compared to today. There's no comparison what technology did. Yet in our industry, you still have the majority of the consultants providing an annual report with this year versus last year and nothing else, and didn't meet all those government filings. This is just an evolution of technology that you can use technology to really understand your pension fund, but you can't by looking at a book full of numbers.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Of course, Gene, I'm a big visual guy. I love doing, the interviews on video and, live interviews. And one thing that you've been able to accomplish at your company is you have something called data visualization, and it really puts your client in the position to really get a summary of complex data using graphics. And I love that so much. Let's talk about that. That's a great part of the platform.
Yes, data visualization is a huge part of who we are. And the old saying is a picture tells 1,000 stories. But with technology, it's more than a picture. It's a movie, a three-dimensional movie. And this is particularly useful in the health insurance arena, where when you use data visualization techniques, you can hone in and say, if our costs are escalating, is it due to the whole population, or is it due to, a couple of cases here and there? And data visualization techniques allow you to hone in down to that level without having to spend weeks, poring over data.
Yeah, that's super cool. I want to talk about the team that's putting the technology together. I mean, when we talk about data visualization techniques, Cheiron's using heat maps and bubble graphs and scatter plots, geographic maps, 3D charts, geospatial maps, and the like. It's very, very powerful. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about your team. Let's talk about your technology team. You must be very proud of the team and the type of technology that they're able to put forward, including all of this data visualization for your clients.
Yes, and interestingly, our technology team is largely actuaries as well. And so we just don't look to outside specialists. We do have outside data visualization consultants that we continuously talk to and keep us up to date. What's the latest technology? But internally, we've got probably about a fifth of the company are people that are very technology savvy with data visualization. And wow. we do have constant internal training sessions for this. And it's the next step of what I'm looking for is putting our stress testing into one of those virtual reality masks where you could see your pension fund that way.
How about that? You're ahead of the game in that regard. You're a real zeitgeist and a forward thinker. One thing that you're doing now that just makes sense, and I know people love it, is you have the client portal. And of course, your clients can gain secure access to all the projections and all the data, 24/7. How popular is that online client portal that you've put together?
Well, it's not only popular, it's now mandated in our industry because of HIPAA, and data privacy. We collect a lot of sensitive data. And so maintaining a secure internal portal like that is really something that's really mandatory.
Yeah, it's super cool. And of course, when we think about the pension, we think about companies, we think about boards. At least I do. And, board meetings are very important. Let's talk about, Gene, how your company can either help or prepare for an upcoming board meeting.
Well, what we normally do is before each and every board meeting, we will have the presentation material available for the staff of the board to review, and we will work with them to walk through it, and we'll get their input. And by the time we get to the board level, it's been gone over by numerous people at the client's office, as well as some representative of the board. So it's never going to be a surprise when you get to the board meeting. The last thing you want to do is come to a board meeting and unveil a surprise, particularly an unexpected surprise.
Yeah, Gene, it makes sense. That's why the modeling and the stress testing is so important. Let's take a minute and talk about entrepreneurship. people that Google you, they look at what you've done, Gene. I mean, you have an incredible career. You've really become one of the leaders in this particular space. But for the younger entrepreneurs watching the show, maybe they're hitting a roadblock. Maybe they're hitting a pothole in the road. Maybe, they freeze in the frame. Maybe they're just having a tough time getting through that wall. Maybe you could share some insight, Gene, based on your background to the younger entrepreneurs about what it takes to keep on pushing.
Okay. There's three things I can think of. First, in my early days, my mentor always told me, focus 95% of your attention on revenue and only 5% on expenses. Those people that spend more time on the expenses will fail. So I've always adhered to that. A second thing I learned is that when you see talent, very talented people out there, hire them. Don't wait for a position to open and then try to find someone to fill that position. Anytime you find very, very talented people, you should hire them. They'll find a way they'll find a way to get busy, and you won't have to worry about them. That's a second thing. And a third thing, and this is maybe a few years into your evolution, what I learned was, Cheiron has offices throughout the country here. But what we did is we said, we're one firm. We're not going to have clients assigned to the Chicago office, clients assigned to the LA office. All our clients are Cheiron's clients. So we're going to staff all our clients with people throughout the country because we're all connected online. And that's how we've always operated. And then when the pandemic hit, it was work like usual because we always worked online, connected to each other. But office fiefdoms is something that kills a lot of large firms because they compete with each other for clients. And we haven't had that in our entire history.
Yeah, well thought out. You're playing 3D chess when others are playing simple checkers. Gene, let's talk about it just a little bit. And I know you've only cut out a certain amount of time today. I want to thank you so much for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. This has been very, very interesting with what you're doing at Cheiron, of course. Let's talk about corporate culture just for a minute. At Cheiron, the people that work on the team, the technologists, the people that are part of this dynamic team. When you hire somebody on, like you just mentioned, hire talent. What's the thing you're looking for? Is it talent? Is it background, experience, or maybe attitude, or maybe some combination thereof?
It's definitely a combination. The attitude is definitely a part. Talent has to be there. Initiative is important. And then the circumstances, sometimes why they're leaving their prior employment and joining here sometimes plays a factor. But I think the attitude, initiative, and talent are the big issues. But you mentioned corporate. I think you said corporate structure.
Yeah, we were talking about sort of corporate leadership and corporate culture. It always starts at the top. And it looks to me like, the people on Cheiron, the professionals you have on the team, they meet the highest standards, number one. They're definitely experts in big picture and, what I would call the technical nuts and bolts of the business. And I would imagine that they have to have the ability to communicate effectively. So let's talk about that. On your team, when you look at your clients, how important is communication with your clients? It's
hugely important. And in fact, that's another attribute you look for in a new hire. Can they communicate? Because what some firms do is they'll hire what they call a client manager who's not an actuary and just have the actuary sit there next to him to answer tough questions. And the client manager manages clients. Here at Cheiron, we only have actuaries. All our actuaries have to be able to program our models. I personally still program the models. And we're a very flat organization as opposed to a corporate pyramid. And I spend my time with clients and as much as everyone else in the firm. And that culture, it feeds upon itself.
I love it. It's great. And of course, you've written some great articles. Some of the, articles are a little tongue in cheek about actuaries. When we think about an actuary, there's this common perception about what an actuary is and what their mindset is and the way they approach their day. What's some of the things that our audience might be interested in hearing about what maybe the misconceptions about actuaries are based on some of the, articles that you've written in the past?
Well, actually, I think actuaries like the misconceptions because most people don't know what we do. And because of that, not many people enter our field. And therefore, we're in far more demand than we otherwise would be.
That's so interesting. It's great. I mean, so they love it. They love the way in which they're sort of positioned in movies and television shows and things like that. I love it so much. This has been so great. And what you're doing is really, really incredible. Before I let you go, I really only have one question for you. We always talk about the can-do attitude versus the can't-do attitude. And so many young people today, they're being raised with that can't-do attitude, and it just kind of sort of drives everybody crazy at .com magazine. We want the can-do attitude. How important for your corporate culture, Gene, is it to have people that have this can-do attitude where they're just going to get it done no matter what and help your clients no matter what the situation is?
That's yet another attribute what you look for in new hires, because people that just give excuses when they can't do everything really aren't going to be useful to us. And over time, when you've worked with staff, you do see who is the can-do people and who is the cannot. But but that doesn't mean the can't-do don't have a place. There's a baseball analogy I can give you. There's managers that treat their baseball players all the same rules. There's other managers that I think the more successful ones is they put their players in positions they can succeed. So if someone doesn't have a certain attribute, put him somewhere else where he can succeed. So I have one person example who's brilliant, but he can't really communicate. So I don't have him ever go to client meetings, but what I have him do is internally peer review all our work that's being done. He's in a better position to succeed, and we're not forcing him to be a consultant like many of the rest of us are. So.
Yeah, what great advice. I mean, put the people in the right seats. You might have the right people, but they might be in the wrong seats. So find the right seats for them and move on. I mean, Cheiron, the full service pension actuarial consulting firm, I mean, doing such great work. You have a great platform, a great technology platform. You're really at the center of the universe with regard to pensions. And Gene, you're a leader in the space.
And let me just add, though, you keep saying pension, recall almost half of our business is health as well.
All right, well, let's talk about the health just for a second. How does the platform help companies with their health?
You've got a health plan, say, covering all the teachers in the state of Maryland, let's say, and the state is making a contribution, just like a pension fund, and there's health benefits going out, and you're attempting to not have the fund run out of money, or else the benefits will be cut. So we've got to look at things that are causing the health cost to rise unexpectedly. And that's when the data visualization and we had a case where costs were going through the roof on a particular plan with about 25,000 members. And we used the heat maps and finally discovered that it was 3 patients out of the 10,000 or 20,000 that were generating multi-million-dollar claims each year. And we wouldn't have known that without digging into the data visualization.
Wow, I love it. I mean, there's nothing more important than one's health and the health of the health offering for a company. So that's great as well. I mean, you're doing it all, Gene. And I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show today to give us an insight and a inside look at what you're doing at Cheiron. Love the name, love the way you came up with it. And of course, you're helping so many companies. I mean, it's just remarkable the types of change that you're making within a company's not only pension plan, but health plan as well. So Gene, thanks so much for coming on the .com magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight series today.
Thank you, and take care.